Alright, peace and greetings, YouTubers. So, Roots, the final episode, episode 4, the finale. Overall, I thought this was a decent episode. I think out of the 4 episodes, this might have been my least favorite. And it was only my least favorite because I was so busy comparing the original with this one. And the endings are so... When I say these endings are so different and they're so... The storylines are like it's like 2 different movies you're watching. Or 2 different series you're watching. So it was hard for me to really get into this episode because I'm like, well, when is this part going to happen? And when is this person going to... What happened to that person? So it was kind of like that. But overall, the storyline and everything like that was still, very well put together. I missed like the first 6 or 7 minutes of this episode because DC traffic is stupid. And yeah, I was stuck in traffic trying to get home and dealing with some other stuff. And so I missed what happened to Kizzy. Now, I don't know what they did in this one, but I know in the original, I believe Kizzy ended up being free and got to become an old woman. And she actually goes back to the original plantation where where Kunta Kinte and his wife were. And, she finds out what happened to her father and her father's family and everything. She goes to his grave site. She scratches out Toby because, of course, they buried him as Toby. She scratched that out real quick and wrote Kunta Kinte on the grave site. She also ran into Trifling Abigail, like on the wagon somewhere. And Abigail tried to act like she didn't know who she was. And Abigail knew what was up. But that's okay. Go on and be salty, Abby. That's why you weren't even in this one. In the last episode, I guess. So, I don't know what they did with Kizzy on this episode, but that's kind of what happened on the original. And I don't even think they addressed her because I was like, there is no way they put that storyline in 5 or 6 minutes. Because by the time I turned the TV on, Chicken George was already an old man. I said, wait a minute, how he already old? And in the first 5 minutes, what kind of mess? Okay, but... so I started with the scene where he's at Tom Lee's house, and I enjoyed that scene, mainly because George was not having it with Tom, because at this point, Tom has lost everything. He gambled and lost that $20,000 fighting the freaking birds and all, so he lost basically everything. The plantations, he had to sell off some of the slaves, and the jacked part is he sold off George's kids. I said, that's a punk move. You said you was going to spare his family and make sure that they got their freedom and everything else as well when the opportunity came and when, George would make all this money, and you done sold off the family. But what got me was... Tom thought he had George with the whole mental psychological thing, and, well, that's my blood in your veins. You better remember you talking to me, boy. George said, listen, let me explain something to you. And he basically said, anything associated with me that is great comes from the African side. It ain't got nothing to do with you. It ain't got nothing to do with what you've done, because in reality, there's nothing you've done for me. All of the terrible traits of my personality, maybe that comes from you. But the part that got me is when he says, and to be honest, you were a slave this whole time, you didn't even know it. And I think that's reflective of society then and society now. Reflective is going to be my word today because I figured I was saying symbolic too much in the last 3 videos. But I say reflective because reflective of the mindset that so many in the South during that time period had. They were so angry about the fact that slavery was, going to end, or slavery was over, and that was their livelihood, that a lot of them chose to purposely stay ignorant and complacently ignorant with their viewpoints because they wanted to hold on to that element of power that they thought they had. And when you look at the world today, in 2016, I gotta go there for just one quick second, let me turn into Professor Calvin for a quick second. Dr. Calvin, let me speak into existence. There is a demographic in America, basically working class poor white Americans, who literally have nothing, not a pot to piss in. A lot of them don't have education. A lot of them are doing terrible. They have it extremely hard. And the thing about it is, what keeps them going, or what makes them still feel somewhat empowered, is the element of whiteness, the element of being white, because they know that white is a protected power structure in this country. So even if you have somebody like Barack Obama, who's this Ivy League graduate and is the current president of the United States, the fact that I can belittle him and try to make him to be something he's not, and I'm protected and covered by my whiteness, makes me feel better about everything, and I still feel that I have some power over this black man. That's literally how a lot of these white people think. Like, they literally have nothing, but the thing that they feel they have that makes them feel good about everything is that they're white, and that they still feel that they have some kind of power. Lyndon B. Johnson had a really good quote about that one time, where he said, if you can convince the poorest white man that he's better than the best black man, he'll empty his pockets for you, he'll even vote against himself. And that's really symbolic. You look at a Trump rally or something like that, and you look at the majority of the demographic that's out at these rallies and out there crying and waving flags, USA, USA. It's usually basically it's a bunch of white people that don't have anything, that have never had anything, that basically are struggling living check to check. And to be very honest, their experience as far as the socioeconomic strain that they experience is the same experience of many black Americans. But because they want to stay protected by that element of whiteness, they won't identify and align themselves with working class black Americans or working class minorities because they feel that that whiteness makes them better. That's why we can make America great again. That's why you can build a wall in China, or not in China, a wall on the US-Mexico border to keep them out because they're destroying the country. No, you need to just wake up and realize the reality of what is. So they've all basically conditioned themselves to believe that the only reason they're not doing well is because people like us and everybody else who is not this has made it hard for them. And so that's kind of the same mindset that Tom Lee had. And that's also the mindset that the bush hunters, bushwhackers, I forgot what they're called, the bushwhackers had. And I also think the bushwhackers were symbolic of an early Klan. In the original episode of Roots, the Klan was brought up because there were 6 episodes in the original, or 5 or 6. This one there's only 4, but the Klan actually arises because the war ends in the original, and then all these angry white people pissed off. They lost their livelihood. All of the money and the wealth that they once had, or that they thought they may have had, because like I said, there were a lot of poor people in the South before the Civil War who didn't have slaves, but they still felt that they had some kind of power because at least we're not black, at least we're not slaves. Well, so we'll call you the N-word and call you all these different things, even though we're living in some shack with 18 brothers and sisters in one room, but it's better than being a slave. Ha! So you have that demographic of people who are now pissed off because they feel like they've lost the country, they've lost their livelihood, they've lost their way of life. They want to get together, they're pissed off. So the bushwhackers, to me, were basically the decentralized version of the Klan. And the Klan, in my opinion, is more so something that kind of formulated as the bushwhackers started becoming more centralized. So that was kind of addressed in the original Roots. It didn't really happen in this one, but the original had happened. Moving on, I also enjoyed the line that George had said to his son, because his son at first wasn't feeling Chicken George at all. Like, man, you ain't been here for 20 years, I don't know who you are, you kind of messing up my flow, and they keep trying to make you out to be this hero, and yeah, I don't see it for you. And basically, he gives him this line where he's like, there's no correct way to be a slave. And I enjoyed that line because I think, again, reflective is my word in this video, that's reflective of the experience of many black people in America today. I think we as a demographic, us, those of you who are watching in this demographic, everybody else, you can sit and listen, but I don't need you to chime in on the comment section because this part's not for you. I feel like we, a lot of times, have to always remember that we do live in a country where there's a power structure that works against us. So we always have to be on our P's and Q's and always pull our weight and always make sure that anything we do it to the best of our abilities, because at the end of the day, they're waiting for you to mess up. They're waiting for you to do something wrong so that you can be punished severely, because there's nothing better in this certain structure of America than to watch a black person fall. Look at somebody like a Serena Williams, or somebody, who else is somebody that's, well, we'll stick with Serena. Serena is like one of the most hated athletes in the world. And it's funny because she's very humble, she's extremely talented, she wins literally everything, and mainly the reason that they hate her, they can't give a real reason. So they make up things. I don't think she's real sportsmanlike. And I'm like, all these other different little white girls that compete against her and call her all kinds of gorillas and beasts and make fun of her and stuff their costumes to make the breast big and make the butt big. Oh, those are the sweethearts. And oh, they have all these big endorsements and everything like that. Like, Serena's not even the highest paid tennis player in the world, even though she's been ranked #1 for how many years? It's stuff like that. So it's like, for us, when he said, like, there's no good way to be a slave, you can think that you moved up just because you have a bit of something, but you still need to remember that in this country you are black. So as a black person, it's your responsibility to always make sure that you take care of not only yourself, but you take care of those in your community. You make sure that your family is well off. And don't you ever get in a position where you think that just because you have a bit of status, you're not black. Because the minute you get up here, all it takes is one slip up and you're done. Look at Tiger Woods. And he didn't even claim us. They couldn't wait. Look, listen. Anyway, moving on. And some people probably don't agree with that. Oh, well, it's okay. And I think that the part that kind of feeds into that same element is then Tom's wife ends up getting raped in the scene, a few scenes later. And even with him having all that status and everything on the plantation, he wasn't even able to save his wife from what was going on. They didn't respect him enough not to sleep with his wife when the whole thing was going on with the war, and they just let those random troops go in the house and assault his wife, which was terrible to sit through. T.I. was in this part, in this episode. What was interesting about T.I.'s character is that I felt like I was just watching T.I. if T.I. would have existed during that time period. Like, T.I. to me just is the same character no matter what he played. I was like, I'm watching T.I. But I did like the character. It just felt like T.I. was being T.I. only in the 1860s. But it also goes to show what happened with the war when, once again, they don't have any weapons. They get dropped off. Okay, y'all fight for the Union, and you'll get your freedom. We're not gonna give y'all our best weapons, so y'all just figure it out. You guys can kind of more so be collateral and just be our eyes. We'll do all the fighting. And then they get in that little battle on the hill. Then all the white people gonna surrender, and so everybody gotta go. Everybody surrenders, and I knew as soon as they said surrender, I'm like, all you black people are about to die. Either you're gonna die, or they're gonna make y'all slaves. Because there is no way they're gonna be content with you people who they don't see as even being human. There's no way they're gonna be content with you guys shooting at them, and you think they're just gonna let you surrender. You done shot they homeboy and everything. Because when you also look at the Civil War and you look at the socioeconomic wealth of both armies, the Confederate Army was extremely poor, and a lot of the people in the Confederate Army, like, they never talk about this, but like, a lot of them didn't even have uniforms. A lot of them were really just farmers going and grabbing, whatever stuff they had, and they just showed up. It wasn't as structured of an army in comparison to the Union, and I really want to also address something about the Union Army in a second, but let me keep going. So, so that scene got on my nerves when all of them got killed off. Because honestly, I wouldn't have surrendered. The minute them white soldiers would have said, we surrender, I would have just ran off. Because you're not even really in the army anyway. Like, just run. And you wouldn't have gotten in trouble for going AWOL or nothing. If the military wasn't that structured yet, I would have tipped up out of there. I would have not ran. So I got mad at the guy that was laying there. And then, no, wait, I surrender too. I surrender. And then he the first one to get shot. And the rest of them should have saw that as, okay, we need to get out of here, because if they shot him, they shooting all of us. Because if all of them would have ran at the same time, at least a few of them might have got away. Moving on. Let me see, because the episode kind of goes to the war, yada, yada, yada. I'm trying to think in comparison. There were some other scenes that weren't really included in this one that were in the original, because I remember the family gets free after the war, and it kind of gets into that whole sharecropping thing, which they did address. But then the Klan is also there, and they also show an element with like a family that was poor. It was like a poor white family that kind of befriended Chicken George's family that was now free, and so those characters were not included in this. I enjoyed the bit about the woman who was the spy for the Union Army. I don't know if I was sold on her basically dying in this element, because I don't, even if I just something, I'm gonna research that. I'm gonna just research that. I liked her character a lot, but I was like, I don't think she would have let her life go in order to protect Mekhi Phifer's character. I can't. And the thing about it is, people get on my nerves when we talk about the Civil War on occasion, because I just saw a tweet 2 or 3 days ago where somebody was like, 376,000 white men died so that black people could be free, and yet they don't want to thank us, or some other crap they said. Or maybe it was about something else around the world, and they were saying that black people needed to start taking care about some issue around the world. But he was basically trying to say, and this was a white man that said it, like, all these white people died so that you can be free. And I'm like, that is not why the Civil War happened. Okay, the only reason slavery was even an element of the Civil War was because it was about money. If the North could have allowed slaves to still exist, they would have. But the issue was the South had a booming economy, and the North was trying to kickstart their industrial industry. But you can't have a booming industrial industry if you can get all of everything that you're trying to sell and make money from. If you can get it from the South with people who are doing it for free as far as the labor, because up north you got to pay all these people. So okay, in order for us to be a union as a country, and in order for us to really make some money, South, all y'all down there who voted for Jefferson Davis, who thought y'all were not going to vote for Lincoln, y'all need to get rid of y'all slaves, because you're messing up our cash flow. As soon as y'all stop with this free labor y'all are doing, because we got to pay all these people up here, and we've abolished slavery up here, and now our money's not coming in, so we need y'all to not have money either. So either you join us or we're going to come take over. That's the Civil War. It had nothing to do with white people feeling bad. You think white people in 1861 were going to take a bullet for somebody black? who they are. I just told you about the whole power structure and having an element over somebody. Ain't no way 376,000 white people were gonna die for black folks to be free. I don't think so. So y'all can stop with that. Whoever keeps sharing that crap, save it, okay? So when people kind of present the Union Army as like these saviors to black liberation, no, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Not on my watch, ever. No. Let me stay on topic though. So overall, like the episode, I enjoyed. I got a kick out of watching Frederick get shot at the end when he was about to shoot Tom, and then George pulled that gun. I was like, pow, like super quick. It was like, yeah, because he, once again, there goes that mentality. Frederick was so pissed that the war was over, and he had basically said, y'all need to understand, you know, the Union soldiers are gonna be going back up north soon, and you guys, it's gonna be back the way it was as soon as they leave, you know. Y'all gonna be back in that position that you need to be, because once again, now that I have nothing, because my entire workforce is gone, my entire means for living is gone, the only thing I currently have is my power. It's all mental. Even though they did have the element of sharecropping, I wish they kind of would have dug into the sharecropping a little bit more, because literally sharecropping was basically still slavery, just with a little bit of money involved. You still owed debts to the people you were working for. You were treated terribly. But yeah, overall, hold on, let me do a time check because I'm ranting. Okay, I got 3 minutes. Okay, so long story short, I enjoyed this Roots series. And now the reason I really put my effort into watching and supporting this was mainly because I feel that it's important that our narratives continue to be told. You know, the narratives continue to be told. And what's happening is, especially within this current generation, because we as a country are so pressed to be post-racial, even though you can't be a post-racial society until you seam rip all of the structural policy that makes it difficult for certain groups of people to be successful in this country and to have fair rights. You can't put a blind sheet over everything and just say, let's all change our mindsets and love one another, when you're still benefiting from a system that screws over certain groups of people, and there's a system and a structure in place that's unfair to a lot of people. So it's important that our narratives continue to be told. Now, do I feel that we need to start telling additional narratives? Yes. I don't like the idea when people say, well, we don't need any more slave narratives. No, we still need these slave narratives because you have different generations growing up. So somebody like a Snoop Dogg who was pissed off and was like, I'm boycotting because I'm tired of slave narratives, I can understand why he'd be sick of it, because Snoop Dogg is a 50-year-old man, and Snoop Dogg has been watching this mess since the 70s. But now that you have the up-and-coming generations coming, you have these 12 and 13-year-olds coming up, they don't know anything about our roots. They don't know anything about a lot of things. All right, this is a generation of kids that have grown up with a black president. Their first memory of the president was a black man. You know, just that experience alone is different from my experience growing up. And what happens is bits and elements of our history are just being chopped and cut out of the history books, cut out of, you know, our rhetoric, cut out of our discourse, and stuff is being forgotten. So it's important that we keep these narratives and we tell additional narratives, and we always share our story, because they're trying to erase our history. Like if you look at the curriculum, K-12 curriculums regarding anything associated with black history is garbage. It's the same slavery to Oprah in 10 pages. You know, talk about slavery for a little bit, talk about Martin Luther King. You're not going to talk about Malcolm X because he's a little too radical for the book. And then now that because the story is like, we were slaves, slavery ended because Abraham Lincoln saved us, that's another conversation. And then times were a little hard. Martin Luther King came, he died. When he died, white people felt so bad, and out of nowhere, everybody was happy, and Barack Obama became president. That's America's history today. So it's important that we don't let that become the reality of what it is, because once you start seam ripping the history, it takes away the origin of why things are the way they are today. And it makes people less sympathetic and less willing to help work and change things. That's why the Supreme Court's already taken away voting rights, because they're like, oh no, everything's equal now. You don't need to protect the rights of voters. You know, so it's things like that. Or even, I saw the little worksheet that's been floating around on social media, some little kid's homework, and it's saying, oh, well, you know, in the 17 and 1800s, people moved to America from Europe, Africa, and Asia for a better life. There were no black people moving from Africa to no damn America in those 17 and 1800s for a better life. So it's kind of like erasing that slave narrative. Because the thing is, as we continue to try to push towards a post-racial society prematurely, you have to get rid of all the ugly elements of history so that you can keep the wonderful American narrative. And that's what they're aiming to do. So something like this was important. I feel some type of way that BET didn't show this in TV1. I feel some type of way that it aired during the NBA Finals. So a lot of people did not watch. But overall, I think this was a great series. I think there should be more like this. I think there should be more series that tell our history before Africa. Not before Africa, before slavery, because black history does not start with slavery. You know, Black history does not start from the lens of Europeans. How much time I got? F it, I'll just do some editing. And speaking of that, like, it's funny because literally our history is always told from a perspective of somebody else who approves whether or not it's worth being told. You know what I mean? And when I say that, I'm talking about the element of our narratives always being told through a white lens or being shown through a white lens of approval. You know what I mean? Like, literally, our stories don't get shared unless they've been approved by whiteness. And when I say that, let's look at something like philosophy. You know, I learned this when I was at Howard. So the study of philosophy on a collegiate level, you know, you have Greek philosophy, European philosophy, Western philosophy, but a philosophy that's missing is always African philosophy. A lot of times, African philosophy is not considered a real philosophy or a real practice of philosophy, so it's never really respected outside of the historically Black colleges. And what happens is they're like, oh no, it wasn't a real one. And then they're like, you know, because Socrates and Aristotle, you know, it's more so it started with them and the Greek stuff and the blah, 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 and the Roman and yada, yada, yada. And the funny thing about it is like, well, Socrates and Aristotle, where do you think they went to study so that they could gain the knowledge that they attained and then share with the rest of the world? It wasn't in Greece and it wasn't in Europe. They went to Africa. You know what I mean? So it's important that we learn that our history does not start with slavery and that our history does not start when white people started telling stories. There's so many elements of our history that are missing and long gone because we've just stopped telling those stories. And we feel that just because we get a little bit of socioeconomic wealth, all of a sudden we're exempt from participating in the experience of what you would say Black culture is, or the experience of what it's like to share your nationality, your heritage, your empowerment, all that stuff like that. And I feel like when you take those bits of history and they get lost forever, it's harder to empower yourself, which is why I love the fact that the internet is out now and that information is easier, and it's easier to get access to certain bits of information that were never once available 30 years ago. Because in order for us to stay empowered as a people, and in order for us to continue to progress, we have to know where we come from. The good, the bad, the ugly, the excellent. You know what I mean? And a lot of the time, it's only the bad that we're told. It's only the elements of slavery. And even with the slave elements or the slave narratives that are told to us, they're selective about what we get to know with the slavery. They'll pick 2 or 3 people. You know about a Phyllis Wheatley and Harriet Tubman. But, you know, they're not going to tell you about a lot of the other people. They're not going to tell you about a lot of different things that happened during slavery and how literally, if it weren't for slavery, who knows what this world's economy would look like, which is why you talk about something like reparations. America can't even afford to give reparations because if you look at the generational wealth accumulated by the oppression of Black people, America's going to basically write a check that they can't pay back because that's how much money is owed to us. You know, that's just something to think about. Anyway, I'm ranting. I really enjoyed this series. If you really enjoyed following this and you're not subscribed yet, I say just go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We have lots of different conversations on this channel. And everybody who subscribed in the last 4 days, I appreciate you. Thank you for watching, supporting, and the people who've been with me for like the last 5 years, y'all know how we do. Anyway, I'm out. Subscribe.